Good to go. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, so I just wanted to go over some of our newer initiatives in addition to our sampling that we sample, approximately 150 to 200 streams a year to monitor populations in Connecticut, as well as some of the work our habitat program does with culvert reviews and culvert replacements. So these new initiatives are ramping up red surveys in the state of Connecticut, conducting some brown trout removals from sympatric populations with brook trouts, and doing some more transferring of brook trout from donor populations to streams in need of restoration. So jumping into red surveys, uh, really in the state of Connecticut, we hadn't conducted red surveys before, other than the Farmington River, which is one of our our premier brown trout rivers in the state of Connecticut. And that was more to control flow out of a dam and make sure we were watering appropriate habitat correctly. So that's one of the main reasons we don't have a lot of data. The other is it allows me to transition heavily from my field work season to the office less abruptly, so I don't go just from the field and go and sit down in front of a desk and crunch data and write all fall and winter. So, but really, it was to improve our collaboration with and work with Connecticut Trout Unlimited chapters. We've lost some of the connection with them over the recent years. They aren't stocking as much with us. So we felt there was a good opportunity there. We wanted to identify where and when reproduction was occurring in certain streams, both spatially and temporally. We wanted the ability to map and ID habitat where spawning was occurring, and to verify reproduction after transplanting some of the brook trout to some of the the receiving streams, as well as some streams where we stock brown trout fry to create and ramp up sustainable populations where brook trout are present. So jumping into it, we're really focusing on brook trout with these red surveys, also looking at some brown trout streams and some sympatric streams, like I mentioned. It's been a great opportunity to collaborate with Trout Unlimited with several of the chapters, Eastern region staff, national staff. So far, since 2023, when we started, we've surveyed close to 40 streams. I think there's some more than that, but just not all of the data is getting entered into the Trout Unlimited survey 123 form that we created and that we are using. We're utilizing that form that they created because they already had created one. We didn't feel a need to create our own. It's a real good, useful tool they created. It's great at capturing images of reds. You can capture multiple reds. You can geo-reference start locations, end locations of stream reaches, red locations, things like that, capture comments about certain stream reaches, water temperatures, things like that. So where are we focusing our red surveys? Where we're really looking at a variety of places, mostly on state municipal land trust properties, so we didn't have to deal with trespassing issues here in the state of Connecticut. So we've been focusing on our wild trout management areas around the state. These are just a few that I've listed here. So these are a year-round catch and release wild trout streams. So some are allopatric populations of brook trout, some are sympatric populations, some are predominantly brown trout. So we left it up to some of the chapters to go to the areas they were most interested in, and we set up stream segments. So we're also focusing on small tributaries of the Farmington River, which is one of our stronghold watersheds for brook trout in the state of Connecticut. Again, mostly on state and municipal properties, as well as some of our long-term reference sites that we monitor with electrofishing. Most of those in our Chautauqua drainage, which is another stronghold here in the state of Connecticut for brook trout. And we're also doing these red surveys, like I mentioned earlier, to document spawning after we've transplanted brook trout to see if spawning is occurring or they're attempting to spawn. Typically, we're running these red surveys September through December, usually middle of September through December as conditions allow. I like to start them before red development occurs. It's easier when training to go out and show habitat where spawning might occur, and it's easier to recognize some of these reds after doing multiple surveys. And we're typically going out every 7 to 10 days on target streams, and then we kind of bounce to other streams as we see more activity occurring. It's just a map created through the Survey 123 app of where we started in 2023. We started late that year in November, but we were still able to capture some good data that fall. And we conducted surveys in 2024 and 2025, and this is kind of where we are. We have some holes. I'd like to work with some other chapters around the state, get some of the eastern part of the state, southern, some of those coastal streams down near the sound, and kind of ramp up some more going into the future. So what have we found doing these red surveys so far? Very little activity in September. Some of the literature suggests September, October as, early October is peak, but it really seems to be ramping up in October. It's very stream dependent though. For brook trout, at least this year, red activity was extremely active in late October and early November as streams cooled to that 8.5 degrees Celsius range. And then again in late November, there seemed to be another peak around 4 to 7 degrees Celsius. It seems as though some of our groundwater fed streams seem to have later spawning activity. They tend to cool a little slower than some of our surface water streams. And in some streams, especially small ones, the spawning window is very short. I put down to 1 to 2 weeks, but in some instances, I think it's less than that, 3, 4, 5 days. I've gone back to those streams and haven't seen much activity after it's kind of ramped up. What's interesting, we're seeing brook trout spawning into early to mid-December. We saw that in 2023. We had a warm fall into early winter and lots of rain that fall, but we saw some streams with tons of activity into mid-December, which was pretty interesting. What's cool is we're seeing fish, both brooks and browns, actively constructing nests, pairing up. It's very helpful with the brook trout reds nests because some of them are very difficult to identify, especially depending on some of the substrate that's present. So very, very helpful. Another reason to go out every 7 to 10 days is to capture that peak activity and see that occurring. These are just some images we've collected. This is from Delphi Brook, which is kind of in the north central part of the states. The photo on the left is kind of a community nest that we observed at a tail of a pool. We saw brooks and browns spawning in that location. Nice loose gravel habitat. And the photo to the right is some red activity that occurred under an undercut bank. Same stream, Delphi Brook, and that was from 2023. This more recent photos from a tributary of Delphi Brook where I saw a lot of activity, so I decided to jump on this tributary, and you can see a brook trout sitting on a red there on the right-hand side. And a photo of the red to the left after I accidentally kicked it off the red. But very difficult if I hadn't seen those brook trout on those reds to observe on those reds. I was glad I was out that day and caught 5 or 6 fish paired up in different areas. This is a pretty cool video that I captured at Waterworks Brook, which is a tributary to the Connecticut River above Hartford, below Springfield, where there were several fish, 5 to 7 present, and there was a couple in the center below some woody debris here. And you can see, I'll play it again, where the male kind of kicks off some other males from coming in, some of the satellite males, but pretty cool. This was a stream where I walked for about 2 hours and saw 50 reds or so. So pretty cool to go out that day. Now moving on to one of our other initiatives is we're getting involved in some brown trout removals. The only place we've done it is Kent Falls Brook. It's in the western part of the state, direct tributary to the Housatonic River, has a nice natural barrier in place where there's a state park below. Historically, there were only brook trout above those falls. Yoichiro did some of his genetic work there years and years ago. But in 2020, I documented both brooks and browns upstream of that waterfall when I was looking for brook trout gill lice around the states. Fortunately, we didn't come across brook trout gill lice when we were looking, but we did find the brook trout, unfortunately. I mean, the brown trout, unfortunately. So in 2023, we decided to do some standard sampling above the falls. We chose 2 sites, lower site, Duggan Road, just above the falls, and one about a half a kilometer upstream at Carter Roads. The total sample length of both reaches was about 313 meters. At the Duggan Road site, we removed 32 wild brown trout while sampling in a 145-meter sample. And then upstream at the Carter Road site, we only came in contact with 11 brown trout upstream and removed those individuals. So total of 43 brown trout we decided to remove during those sampling opportunities that summer. brought them down below the falls, put them in the state park that's there, which is actually a trout park, so people have the opportunity to fish on them. So wanted to go out, do some more sampling that fall, do some more expansive removal, but high flows kind of prevented that. So went back in 2024 and 2025, removed 203 brown trout in the fall of 2024. And in 2025, came across fewer brown trout, removed 121 brown trout. Higher flows in 2024, not as high as 2023. It was difficult. We removed young of the year through large adults up to 36, 37 centimeters. And then in 2025, we only found one young of the year brown trout, which I thought was pretty good. It shows that we removed a lot of the spawning brown trout the year before, and most of the brown trout were yearlings. So fish we probably missed because of the high flows in 2024. The entire removal area, it varied. It was closer to 2,000 meters in 2024 because we went above some barriers, didn't find brown trout above certain barriers. So in 2024 it was closer, or 2025 it was closer to 1,800 meters or so that we removed these brown trouts. Took 2 to 3 days each time, roughly 10 to 15 staff. It was pretty labor intensive, carrying buckets, running them back to the truck, that sort of thing. And again, all brown trout that were removed were put below the falls, transferred below the falls where there's a trout park and people can fish for them. So just looking at some of the densities, 2003 to 2025 in the area just above the falls, you can see in 2023 dominated by brown trout, represented by that orangish bar, 250 per kilometer as opposed to 50 or 75 brook trout per kilometer. Then you can kind of see somewhat of the effect of us removing some brown trout in 2024, where brook trout doubled and brown trout almost halved. But then 2025, comparable densities, but still lower brown trout than initially in 2023 and higher brook trout than 2023 as well. So a little bit optimistic there. At the Carter Road site, better brook trout habitat up there. We find lower numbers of brown trouts and really haven't seen much of a change there in the densities. Again, it's only been, a couple years. In 2025, we didn't measure or count brook trout because we were just pushing through trying to get as many browns as we could. So we focused on that. So hoping next year when we return, we can see numbers of brook trout go up and brook trout go down. Anecdotally, we saw a lot more young of the year brook trout in between the two sites sampling this year. So, and again, only one brown trout young of the year, which was a good thing. So kind of goal here is, similar to this 2012 publication from Minnesota, where they did a brown trout removal in a sympatric population represented by this dotted line. And you can see the different groups of fish young of the year, small adults, large adults, brook trout here represented. And they treated one section of the stream with a removal, which is represented by the dark line. And the control area was the lighter colored line. And you can see it took a few years for brook trout to respond to the removal of the brown trout. So again, hoping similar type thing we see here in Connecticut and moving forward. So with brown trout removals, future sites possibly, we're going to continue with Kent Falls. Obviously, I think we're seeing some good results there. Possibly continued maintenance removals even after we get the large chunk of brown trout out of there, which I think we have in the past 2 years. We also have some other sites with natural barriers and man-made barriers, which I've listed there. But those areas aren't really as conducive to sampling as Kent Falls. Kent Falls is a nice straight shot. These other locations would be a lot more difficult and expansive. So. And then last kind of newer initiative, we've done this before in the past, as other states have, is we're working on a transplant in Turkey Hill Brook, which of all places is in Waterbury, one of our most populated cities. The stream runs north along my cursor here towards Route 84. I found the stream back in 2020, I believe. So it's a tributary of Beaver Pond Brook, which parallels Route 84, which historically had brook trout present. I think they were dropping out of Turkey Hill Brook when they did the initial sample 30 plus years ago. When I didn't find brook trout present in a big resample that we did, I looked into different reaches, different tributaries, and that's where I found them in Turkey Hill Brook. Again, transplants have worked well in the past. We've done it Mill River Fairfield and a no-name trib to Globe Hollow in the past where we've done this. But Turkey Hill was a little bit different. I sampled it in 2021, found brook trout in fairly good densities below road crossing Interstate Lane, but at that road crossing is a fairly steep, large culvert that's perched that brook trout definitely cannot get back up through. Sampled below and above, didn't find any brook trout above, but put a thermograph in there that summer and found conditions were suitable for brook trout, both above and below, obviously. So resampled in 2023, found decent densities below, zero brook trout above. So early October of that year, we decided to do a transfer of fish from below the road crossing to above it, to a stretch that's probably close to half a kilometer. We just transferred adults in a low number of adults because I didn't want to, harm the population below the road crossing. And really, there weren't a lot of young of the year present. I think they're dropping out of another tributary that we found brook trout in. So we moved some adults that look pre-spawned, 22 in all, and put them upstream of that road crossing. Went back, did some red surveys that fall. It was inconclusive, both upstream and downstream. I didn't observe reds. We did have a large rain event after transferring those fish. Unfortunately, I think some of those fish probably pushed back down. I put them within a couple 100 meters of that initial road crossing. But I do think some dropped down because when we went back in 2024 with electrofishing equipment, we did document 6 juvenile brook trout. So we did have some successful spawning, mostly in the lower reach, but no adults were found. So early October of 2024, we went back, removed even a lower number of adults. Again, I'm trying not to harm that population downstream, put them much farther upstream, closer to the second road crossing. Went back that fall, and we did document a couple reds that fall. So there was some successful spawning, at least red development. Let it cook for the summer of 2025. And so no electrofishing, but did go back this fall, and we did document several reds. We did see adult brook trout likely held over from the 2024 transfer. So we hope to go back in 2026 and do some electrofishing and find, hopefully find that they're more young of the year present in multiple year classes. Since we had started that, we decided we found some other locations where we wanted to do some transfers. So we did a couple transfers this past fall. We chose donor populations from streams that were geographically close. Both streams were found to have suitable physical habitat and water temperatures. One was a no-name trib directly to the Connecticut River. It's in close proximity to that waterworks brook that I showed you the spawning video from early. So we had a nice source population nearby. Super cold stream, summertime temperatures around 17.5, July, August mean temperatures, but it's been heavily impacted by Route 91, Route 20 development. It's over near the airport, and there's lots of road crossings below that have backed up and created swamps. So it's likely that this stream had brook trout present at one time. I've done lots of sampling there, didn't document it, but given the temperatures, we decided to transfer some fish there. So transferred close to 50 brook trout this past fall, multiple year classes. It's a fairly small stream, so we chose a lower number of fish than we typically would using multiple year classes. And then I went back this fall and I did observe reds and brook trout paired up with brook trout paired up in late November. And red development was almost 3 weeks later than what I observed in Waterworks Brook. So I transferred those fish in early October. So this stream took quite a bit longer to cool down than Waterworks. So it was pretty interesting and cool to see that these fish spawned 3 weeks later than those in Waterworks Brook. And then we chose another stream. This one, western part of the state, Cobble Brook is a no-name trib to Cobble Brook is a tributary to the Housatonic River. Again, good summertime, over summertime temperatures, July, August. This stream, a bit different, previously had brook trout present 30 to 35 years ago. I've done some extensive sampling there, upstream, downstream, tributaries, and no brook trout were found in near vicinity of this historic site. So we chose and found a high density brook trout population in another tributary, the Housatonic, fairly close by. Chose to transfer close to 100 brook trout, multiple year classes. Did that this early October, went back and did one red survey. It was pretty early in the fall, didn't document anything. I have no reason, to think that they didn't get off a spawn this fall. I'll follow up with electrofishing next summer and then come up with a game plan if we need to transfer more fish next year. So it's kind of where we are. We do have some other streams that we are planning possible transfers in 2026. One possibly being Binless Brook, which it's a tributary in the southern part of the state. It pretty much dumps into the sound, into brackish water. So pretty cool system down there. It's got a couple road crossings. We did some sampling this summer below a couple crossings that are on ramps and off ramps to Route 95. And brook trout found in good densities below, over 1,000 fish per kilometer, but none above one of the road crossings. So we're considering doing a transfer there. Our habitat group is working on and reviewing a project there for a culvert slip lining project in weirs being constructed as well. So we may wait until that occurs to see if they can recolonize upstream of that last culvert independently. But we're looking at 5 to 6 years for that to happen. And again, this stream also has pretty good over summer water temperatures. And then the last one is we have a nice stream, western part of the state, another tributary of Housatonic River, where brook trout were present 30 to 35 years ago. And did extensive sampling, tributaries, upstream reaches, downstream reaches, and haven't found brook trout. So summertime temperatures are suitable, and we're going to look for transfer to that stream as well if we can find a suitable population to do so. So with that, that's all I had for an update in Connecticut. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Any questions?
Yeah, Jake, Nat here. Can you hear me?
Yep, go for it, Nat.
Brian, that was awesome. Great. Thank you for sharing all that. I just want to say, for one,
Thank you.
having been with Joint Venture since it started, it's just really cool to see Connecticut, being such a leader for brook trout, because that necessarily wasn't the case 20 years ago. And then
Yep.
it's just really interesting to see how your experience in the field is just underscoring some of the main themes that we have as a network, the importance of connectivity and these smaller tributaries not being able to sustain brook trout if they're less than a mile long, or development and stormwater runoff really being an issue for long-term survival, and then the success of getting rid of some of the browns or reintroducing. So anyway, just really, really cool stuff. Thanks for sharing all that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Judd.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Thanks, Brian, for sharing that. It was very interesting. I was wondering if you had any theories as to why. So the places where you're introducing brook trout, where you had them in the past, do you have any ideas why you lost them in the past?
I don't. We don't have a lot of water temperature going back, 20 plus years. We recently started doing that maybe 10, 15 years ago. So I don't know whether it was a drought period. We had an extensive drought in 2016, 17, which could have been related to that. I know I've come across several other streams where we've detected a loss in brook trout and occurrence, and those streams have become unsuitable to warm. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on in these few streams, but I felt it was a good opportunity to go in and move some brook trout, seeing how conditions were suitable now. So
Great. Any more questions for Brian? Well, Brian, again, thank you for sharing that. A lot of great info, and yeah, as Nat said, and I think Lee mentioned in the notes, it's always great to hear about work from others. So thank you for taking the time to share that.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up,